الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآله محمد. Yes, so as my dear brother mentioned, that we are living in these modern times in which there is, it seems, a spiritual crisis that has been plaguing all of, I don't even want to say the Western world anymore, the times that we live in. Even if you're in the most Islamic of countries, nowadays the times have changed to the point where even things there are secularized. And we have to be careful because the dunya is going to be the same dunya that's in the West, is going to be the same for the people in Islamic countries as well, in this day and age, at least in my opinion. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Spiritual crisis has always been a thing throughout the times, and of course the Quran speaks about this as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit. It's not peculiar to the modern era. So what we need to do, inshallah, is what I want to do is I want to go back to 1400 years ago and see what the problem was then, and then see what the modern era has that might set it apart when it comes to spiritual crises, set it apart from the past. Is there something about this day and age and the modern era that we're living in today that makes the struggle maybe harder, makes the crisis a more heavier one for us, living in this day and age? Or no, it's the same exact thing. I personally think no, there is a change. There is a difference between now and 1400 years ago, although the essence of the problem is the same. And so the essence, I would say, of the problem is the fact that, and I'm going to sound a little mystical here, but is the fact that we have in any day and age, now 1,000 years ago, it has always been separation and distance from Allah Himself. The Quran introduces Allah as the only haqq out there. Everything else other than Allah is not haqq. Okay, so I'm going to be going step by step here. This is my first step. The Quran introduces Allah as the only haqq. We have some verses for that. For example, Surah Hajj, verse 62. It says, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْحَقِّ وَأَنَّ مَا يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ هُوَ الْبَاطِلِ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْكَبِيرُ. That's because Allah is the only haqq and truth out there, if we translate haqq to truth, okay? And that everything else that the people are calling on is batil and falsehood. Okay? Now, obviously, this verse, what's it talking about? The verse is talking about the idol worshippers. Hey, idol worshippers. The ones that you call other than Allah, they're all batil. And only Allah is the truth. The thing is, when we do tafsir of this verse, when you look at the mufassirin, usually you'll find that they will, and I personally agree with them on this one, very humbly, they will say that true, the verse is talking about idolatry and idols, and the ones that these people are calling on are batil. But this applies to anything that we call upon in our lives, okay, other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although it's okay. Now we have this term, ash-shirkul khafi, subtle shirk, that we've talked about maybe in our courses, those of you who might have attended. There is I like to call it a halal shirk out there, okay? And the Quran talks about this too. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ, the Quran says in Surah Yusuf. It says, a lot of these people who believe and embrace the faith, guess what? Even they are mushrik. Not a problematic shirk that takes you out of the fold of Islam. But at the end of the day, the fact that if I open up my heart, I will find that if I see myself getting cured from an illness, I will see Allah in there, and I will also see doctor in there. True, Allah has put us in a system of causality and cause and effect, a world of cause and effect. True. But He's given us a lifetime, inshallah, to grow out of this understanding, and inshallah, Him blessing us with this light of true tawheed, where we actually come to this realization and experience and taste the fact that Allah is everything and behind everything. And so, even if a person is a mu'min, a believer, a faithful, they can still, in a sense, suffer from a shirkul khafi. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. It just shows we have some work to do in this life. And that's why He's given us a whole lifetime. So if I'm talking to a 20-year-old, I'm not going to have such an expectation. But when I'm talking to myself when I'm 70, if I'm still struggling with the same shirk khafi when I'm, 7 years old. I'm like, bro, what'd you do with your life, man? You know? The guy's like 60 years old and he's still a child, it seems. A person who continues the path of Allah, a person who's connected to the literature that we have and scripture that we have, after a while, after time passes and they stay on that path of obedience of Allah and being an abd of Allah, slowly, according to what these greats say, a light will shine in their heart, and slowly other than Allah will dissipate and leave from that heart. Okay? So, going back to the verse now, the verse is saying everyone that they call upon. Yes, the verse is talking about the idols, and that those are all batil. But then these urafa and mufassirin, they point out that, look, everything that your heart is attached to at the end of the day, although it's not haram, but the fact that it's still attached shows that there's some batil there. Well, we have a lifetime to work on that and get rid of that, inshallah. Alright, so the problem is that wherever you don't have Allah, there's batil there. That's the problem, the Quran is saying. Another verse, Surah Fatir, verse 13. يولج الليل في النهار يولج النهار في الليل سخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري لأجل مسمى ذلكم الله ربكم له الملك والذين تدعون من دونه ما يملكون من قطمير. He makes the night pass into the day and makes the day pass into the night. Like he merges them. This is also interesting. On the side, let me just say this, that the verse says that he kind of merges night into day and day into night. Think about it. You're driving on the street and then boom, all of a sudden it turns night. Like there's going to be a lot of accidents. All right? But when it slowly turns dark, less accidents. It's just an example. It's interesting that Allah points this out in verses of the Quran, not just once, by the way, that I do ilajul layl and ilajul nahar, or al-ilaj fil layl wal ilaj fil nahar. All right, anyway, but that's not what we want here from the verse. It goes on, it says, that is Allah, your Lord. To Him belongs all sovereignty. And so this president, that prime minister, although we look at them and we say they also have mulk, but Allah is saying in the Quran, look, other than me, there is no mulk. It all belongs to me. And so here you find that, okay, that as mankind, the distance is more from that haqq and from the mulk of Allah. That's where the problem is. وَأَنَّ وَالَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ مَا يَمْلِكُونَ مِن قِطْمِيرٍ. All these other ones that you're running after and chasing. Now once again, it might be talking about idols in the specific context of the verse, but the milak and the criteria that the verse is giving us applies to not just idols, anything that I go after. Why are you going after this person or that person? Well, it is a world of causality and I have to do this. But deep down inside, I should know that all mulk belongs to Allah, because the verse is saying that. Just because there's a system of causality in this life and we have to work with each other, and there's a social, the society dictates to us certain things, that's fine. It's not like I have to go live in some mountain and Allah is going to send down food for me or something. That's not how it works, obviously. But while we are living in a world of cause and effect, the Quran is saying, fix your perspective. Understand that these are just the middle links between that chain of causality. Who's at the top of that chain? It's Allah Himself. Lahul mulk. Not for anybody else. All sovereignty belongs to Him. All haqq is Him. Everything else is batil. And so once again, I'm going to repeat what I said. As a person growing up, as a Muslim, wherever I live, you can live in the most holiest of cities, but if we don't fix this perspective, and it seems the only way to fix this perspective is through practicing Allah's religion, not just believing things. As we practice, the capacity for that nur to shine in the heart grows, and Allah will shine that light in our hearts. That I am everything. I am all of haqq, all mulk belongs to me. Another verse, Ya ayyuhan nas, antumul fuqara'u ila Allah, wallahu huwal ghaniyul hamid. O mankind, you are the ones who stand in need of Allah, and Allah is the all-sufficient, all-laudable, all-praiseworthy. Alright, so, antumul fuqara. Fuqara, what does faqir mean? We all know what faqir means, because usually we're all broke, right? So, we have an understanding of faqir, but usually it's about, financial brokenness. But in reality, when you look at this verse, it's not talking about, you all need God for financial purposes. No. Here the Mufassirin have explained again, you are in need of Allah when it comes to everything, even your actual existence itself. This is obvious. All of you know what this verse is saying. Alright, so if everything is Allah, and everything other than Allah is batil, I would say that is the main problem that we have. But why do we need to identify that everything else is batil and all of that? Well, once we find out that everything other than Allah is batil, you tell me, does batil persist? Does it continue? Or does it cease to exist? Batil, the thing about it is, it's not an actual thing. It's not an actual, let's call it, I'm going to say this very loosely, it's not an actual existence, batil. And so because of that, قُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Batil, that it's its nature, that it's always leaving, it's going, it's going to cease to exist. Well, guess what, brothers and sisters? If that's the case, then we can conclude that everything other than Allah ends. I'm taking steps here. So step number one was, for those of you who, God forbid, might be taking notes, just to make it easier for you. Step number one is, all haqq is Allah, everything else that is batil. Step number two, everything other than Allah is going to end if Allah is the only haqq. Because batil, it's in its nature that it ends. Okay? We have two verses, super verses, all right, that talk about this. And you all know, you've probably heard these verses. Who can complete for me? كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ. All right? The Jalali wal Ikram. It's wajhu, not wajhu. But that's for another day. All right. So وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. He liked that one. All right. So the Quran is very clearly telling us. Now we could have inferred that if all haqq is Allah, everything else is going to end. Right? Because it's batil, and batil is something that in its essence it ends. But the verses are now clearly even wording this for us and verbalizing it for us, that look, كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. Everything on the face of this earth is fani. Yeah, is going to experience fana and is going to be destroyed or will be destroyed. Now, there are some technical discussions here that I don't want to get into, that right now even it's as if they're destroyed. Or kullu shay'in halik. Everything out there right now is halik. We all know what halak means, right? Destruction, annihilation. Everything is as if doesn't exist right now. As if. Keyword here is as if, okay? As if it is so insignificant in its existence that it's as if it doesn't exist. Okay. So number one, everything other than Allah, batil. Batil ends. The verses tell us, step number two, everything other than Allah, the end. All right. Now, we move on. We're still trying to identify what was the problem 1400 years ago. See how much that problem exists today in the modern era of taking away from our spirituality. Okay, that's what we're after. Step number three, our literature teaches us and reminds us. I don't even want to say teaches us, reminds us, because this is something we can understand on our own. We just have to be reminded of it. That look, things that don't last are not worth it. Things that end, we don't like it. The Quran makes it clear, the ahadith make it clear. For example, like you can tell Allah is shaking his head while he's saying this. It says, كَلَّا بَلْ تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَةِ وَتَذَرُونَ الْآخِرَةِ. Like, no man. كَلَّا, no man. تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَةِ. You all are in deep love and connection with al-ajila. Ajila is that which is close and nearby. Right now you have it. Yeah? In Farsi we say naqdu bichasp. Surah Qiyamah verses 20-21. No, indeed. Rather, you love this transitory life and forsake the hereafter. Well, what is it about the hereafter that, oh Allah, you're so upset that we have forsaken? Well, what was it about the first part that was so problematic? It said transitory. You see, it didn't say that you love this transitory life and you leave the non-transitory life. It called it a name now. It called it the akhirah. So from that we can understand, because the akhirah is opposite to transitory, that means the akhirah is not transitory. Sometimes things can be understood from their opposites, right? Or, for example, Surah A'raf, relate to them an account. Like, God really has problems, and Imam Ali will talk about too, has problems with things that end. They do not like things that end, all right? Relate to them an account of him to whom we gave our signs. And some say this is about Bal'am Ba'ura. You all have heard the story, inshallah. The guy of Bani Israel, who Allah gave him something special. This guy though, instead of using those special, whatever it was Allah had given him, to benefit himself and others, he used it to do ikhlad ila al-ard, the Arabic says. And I'll get to that in a second. So let's read now. Relate to them an account of him to whom we gave our signs. We gave him something special. But he cast them off thereupon Shaitan pursued him. You see, he showed a vulnerability. Shaitan sees, oh, I can go from this hole right here. So he made the mistake, then Shaitan sees vulnerability. That's also a little point in these verses. Thereupon, Shaitan pursued him. As if before that, Shaitan wasn't interested. Oh, you're special, man. I don't think I can misguide you. Oh, you cast away Allah's signs yourself? Dang. All right. Looks like we can take care of you. And so Shaitan pursued him now. As a result of that mistake that he made, he became one of those who was misguided. Had we wished, we should have surely raised him by the means of those signs and the special things we gave him. But he akhlada ila al-ard. Now the English says clung to the earth. Akhlada comes from khulud. So here, this person clung to the earth, to the dunya, to this life that we have. But as he's clinging, it's using the word khulud in this verb, which shows that he clung to it with this understanding or this mentality that I'm going to be here forever. That's the problem. But this is not a place forever. So his parable is that of a dog. If you make for it, it brings out its tongue. If you don't make for it, it still brings out its tongue. It's always as if it's thirsty for this dunya, in other words. All right, and it goes on. Okay, so here, once again, what's the problem? Akhlada. Dude, this is not a place where you find khulud. Khulud and eternity is somewhere else, not here. Another little excerpt from our literature, from Nahj al-Balagha. Imam Ali, it seems that you don't like pleasure. Pleasure's bad, right? He says, no. I don't like pleasure that doesn't persist. I have nothing to do with that which ends. And from that you can deduce that, okay, so he doesn't have a problem with pleasure itself. He's like, I don't want something that ends. You know, sometimes they think that religious people, right, we are not interested in pleasure. No, we all like pleasure. It's just that some of us stick to the one that's going to end. Others, the more religious people, they're the most pleasure-seeking people, as a matter of fact. But they understand that their souls are not to be exchanged for something that's going to ever end. Is it going to ever end? 1,000,000 years from now, is it going to end? Yes, it might end. I'm not interested. I want forever. That's what they're after. And so I personally think religious people, the real religious ones, kind of like myself, we are after a pleasure that never ends, not just anything else other than that. We don't substitute anything else. I'll give you a little story on the side here. A little story on the side, just to illustrate this point, okay? Of how us human beings, Allah has designed us in this way that we only want eternity. It's funny, we only want eternity. We know our life here is going to end though, but we're still happy with this life. But look how He has designed us. I was back in the day in Qom, our hawza, there was a big library at the top. We would go and study there. There was a librarian there, and he wasn't like a Shaykh or hawza student. He was a normal person, a human being. We have a joke in the hawza. We say, is your dad a hawza student or is he Adam? Normal person. So that's the joke we have. Anyway, these are the secrets that we're not supposed to share. So anyway, this librarian was a normal human. And so one day I walk in, to study and whatnot. And then he looks a little upset. I'm like, what's going on? He's upset. He's like, yeah, someone was here and they just proved to me that even Jannah is going to end. But it'll be like there for millions of years, but it'll end eventually. Someone proved this to me right now. So I kind of laughed and stuff about it. I was like, that doesn't make sense really. The Quran doesn't support that idea. But he used verses of the Quran that are metaphorical to prove to this person, this miskin, that Jannah is going to end after millions of years. So the point I want to make is this person was upset. By the way, it's not going to end after millions of years, okay? This person though was upset. Why? Because he had been told that, look, you're going to spend 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years of your life, living within the boundaries of Islam, staying away from some harams and doing the wajibat and so on. But Allah's only going to give you millions of years in return. This person, my man, was after eternity. Okay? Like this person was upset, legit, that it's going to end after like 2 million years. Habibi, like we are happy with 60 years here. By the way, 20 of which were broke. 20 years after that were break. It's just that middle slither, kind of like where I'm at right now, kind of, when things are working out, but then I'm a sheikh, so you can't have too much fun either. So like right in the middle or somewhere, you got like a sweet 10, 20, 15 years. We're happy with that. And then the guy's upset that millions of years we're going to have fun, but it's going to end. He was upset. I'm just trying to say that look at how Allah has designed us, that we are after eternity. So in this excerpt here, Imam Ali, he makes that clear too. He says, مَا لَعَلِيٍّ وَلِنَعِيمٍ يَفْنَى وَلَذَّةٍ لَا تَبْقَى. He says, what does Ali have to do with pleasures that are going to end? He didn't say with pleasure, period. You know, because some of us think that like, no, I don't want pleasure, I want Allah. Well, that's pleasure itself too. All right? He says, I have nothing to do with na'imin yafna, not na'imin, period. Na'imin, which is the plural of ni'mah, blessings that are going to end. That's my problem. That are going to experience and suffer from fana. That's my problem. وَلَذَّةٍ, ladha, pleasure, lizzat, la tabqa. That doesn't persist. It is not going to be baqi forever. That's my problem. And then look at what he says in the end. He says, نَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ سُبَاتِ الْعَقْلِ. That we would seek refuge in Allah from the minds going to sleep and being that dumb that they're going to fall for something that's going to end. All right, so number one, Allah is all haqq. Everything else is batil. Okay? In the sense that it's going to end. Things that end, they're not worth anything. I'm going to add this super line by Imam Ali as well, and we'll talk about this maybe later as well. Imam Ali has a super line. Think about it, guys. He says, Kullu atin qaribun. 3 words. If it's going to end, I don't care how far out it is. Is it coming to me or not? I'm going to live in this world for 1,000,000 years. Guess what? Year number 999,999. I'm going to be like, whoa, that was quick. Probably it'll be kind of like a person who lived here for 100 years. Maybe. Why? Kullu atin qaribun. Anything that's going to eventually arrive, which is death, in this example that I'm talking about at least. Anything that's going to arrive is close, it's not far, but it's 1,000,000 years. Yeah, but because it's going to arrive, it's short actually. Qarib, mish ba'id, qarib. All right? Or arib. All right, so number one, as I said, I keep repeating this because I want to make sure that this is hammered in. Batil. Everything other than Allah, batil. Batil, it's nature that it goes. Anything that goes, yes, is going to be worthless. We're not after that which is going to end, and no matter how far out it is, because it's going to arrive, arrival someday equals, it's close, it's short. You've all heard the story of Prophet Nuh, right? The angel of death came, he's like, it's time to go. He's like, bro, 950 years, that was quick. Like the actual account, it says this. Israel, that was very quick. It's time to go. Habibi, Nuh, like you, 950 years you were lecturing, the Quran says. You weren't just living. You probably lived more than 1,000 years, but the Quran says you were preaching for 950 years. Yeah. But he says that was very quick. And that's what the angel says, what about the ones that come in the end of times? They live for like 100 years. What about them? He's like, that's nothing. But for us, we're like, wow, that's something. All right, anyway. Now, because everything other than Allah ends, we're not interested in it. Why are we not interested in it? Because it's close. If it's close, it's as if it never even happened. As if, once again. How much value does something have, that is going to end? Yeah. When you compare, let's say, a number to the power of, 500 or something, that's a lot of zeros, okay? 1 to the power of, 1 times 10 to the power of God, whatever, how many? 500 zeros after that, okay? Compared to infinity, how much should they say it actually values, or how much it's worth? Usually they'll say it's 0. Any number that's finite compared to infinity, they'll say we act as if it's 0, correct? The Quran says, so we're trying to now put a value on a life that's going to be short and will end. In the dictionary of the Quran, if it's going to end, it's going to be very little. Almost 0, if not 0. Now, by the way, we're going to be trashing dunya a little bit, but towards the end, we're going to be talking about it very highly. All right, so bear with me, all right? Inshallah. The Quran says, Surah Ra'd, verse 26, وَفَرِحُوا بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They're happy about this lowly life that they have here. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا مَتَاعٌ. But when you compare the dunya to the akhirah, it's nothing but a little small insignificant matter. That's it. Compared to the akhirah. 1 million compared to infinity, very small, tiny. Obviously, the value of 1 million versus infinity is not 0, 0. But we act as if it's 0, right? That means it's very insignificant. Quran is saying the same thing. The life in this dunya, very short. Yeah? Compared to akhirah, illa mata'. It's just a little bit incy wincy spider. Went up. Kullu atin qareeb. Alright. So now, if that wasn't enough for us to come to this conclusion that it's 0, straight up Imam Ali gives us examples where he thinks it's 0. There are 3 lines in different parts of Nahj al-Balagha where he's talking about this dunya. What does he say? It says, in one case, it says, Wallahi la dunyakum hadihi. This is our next step now. Ahwanu fi aynayya min uraqi khinzir fi yadi majdum. He says, this world of yours, this dunya of yours, dunyakum, for me is worth less than the bone of, you all have heard this, right? A bone of a pig, of a dead pig, in the hand of a person who has leprosy. Like, it's one thing that like someone like good looking gives you a dead pig bone versus a person who has leprosy and some illness that might be contagious and gives it to you. There's a difference. Question: how much, if you were to put a price on that dead bone that someone like that is giving you, how much? What price would you put on that? Anything higher than 0? I'm willing to pay something so that person doesn't give me what they're holding, to be honest. This is not 1 million versus infinity anymore. That we say, okay, it's insignificant. It's like absolutely 0, if not negative. Another one. وَإِنَّ دُنْيَاكُمْ عِنْدِي لَأَهْوَنُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ فِي فَمِ جُرَادَ تَقْضَمُهَا. This world of yours, for me, دُنْيَاكُمْ, is like that leaf in the mouth of a locust as it's chewing on it. How much is that leaf worth for you? Like you've seen this National Geographic when they zoom in on the bug and the bug is eating. Just today it came up on my feed. The female praying mantis was eating her husband. Okay, what did you say? Is that real life for us too? Who said that? It wasn't me, guys. There's a brother over there. He said something. He's like, I'm that praying mantis. Anyway, she was eating at her. Wait, that was a disgusting sight, man, to watch. How much is that worth? The leaf that a locust is enjoying, devouring, how much is that worth? When I look at that, in National Geographic, they zoom into the face, like there's all these little things moving, which is beautiful in the sense of Allah's creation, how Allah is managing all this. But at the same time, we're not interested in that. How much is that worth for us? 0, correct? You laugh at the wrong things, man. It's funny. All right, so how much is that worth? 0 once again. Is Imam Ali like sugarcoating anything here? He's trying to do some mujamala or something. Maybe there's a little bit of worth. No, he's being really straightforward here. Another one. It says, La alfaytum dunyakum hadihi azhadu indi min aftati anzin. Once again, he says that this world of yours, for me, is worth, azhad. It's worth less than the sneeze of a goat. Like, who even knew goats sneezed? Right? But my guess is that he means that which, that projectile that comes out of the nose of the goat when it sneezes. How much is that worth? Okay, instead of using fancy, like the booger that shoots out. That's what he's talking about. When that goat sneezes and that mucus shoots out, who is in their right mind going to give any price, any value to something like that? The sneeze of a goat. Oh, Imam Ali is being metaphorical here. Imam Ali is being like this. No, Imam Ali is actually, I think, being very clear here that for me, it's not worth anything at all, because the examples that are being used are examples that really don't have any value at all. Correct? If anybody gives any value to these things, it shows that they're not getting the example that he's trying to get across to us and the point he's trying to transfer to us. Anyway, all right. So our literature, if it wasn't enough for us to understand on our own that if something is going to end, that really it's not worth anything, directly and explicitly it's now saying it, that it's worth 0 because of these 3 excerpts that I just read. Because I don't see any value in any of those things that the Imam has listed here. All right, the problem of mankind, it seems, from the days of the past all the way till pre-modern times, let's say, is that they have put their eggs in any basket other than the basket of Allah Himself. Anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to cease to exist. If I go after the dunya and I pursue the dunya, the only reason I will be doing that is because Allah has told me to survive here and to live a good life here and to provide for my family, above average even, that's fine. Yeah? But it's all going to be in line with, it's going to go back to Him. Nothing in and of itself is going to have any value. And so it seems, I think we can say actually, with confidence that whenever something replaces Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in other words, has a little bit more value than it really does have in our eyes, that's when the problem comes. That's where our lives have been desacralized, man. That word, yeah. I didn't choose the title, by the way. I chose the title that had the word in it. Desacralization is a word. Remember that, okay? And then the opposite of it is resacralization. Think about that. All right, so we'll talk about that. That's when it seems, that's exactly the point where things have been desacralized. The moment Allah is taken out of it. Okay, because everything else is going to end. As everything else is batil, nothing is worth anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if there's anything else that has value, it's because of its connection with Allah, being in line with the will of Allah and so on. Correct? All right. Now, let's talk about the modern era. Okay? In this modern era, what do we find? We find more comfort and convenience. As we find more comfort and convenience, the more the value of things go up. Okay, I want you to pay attention to this point here. What do we have in this world that we live in? All right, I'm not trying to say comfort is bad. No. Comfort is good. Comfort is good. Health and wealth is good. The problem is the perspective. The problem is that this comfort all of a sudden becomes valuable in and of itself. That's what the modern era, it seems, is doing that we didn't have in the past. In the past, there was comfort, but not like we have today. For example, right now, what do we have? We have how much food is out there? How much food is out there? Food accessibility. Although half the stuff they feed to us now is not even considered food, right? Because it's so unhealthy. But all in all, how much food is out there? It's hard. It's hard to actually get hungry, right? I was doing some intermittent fasting once. I was like, what's this feeling that I'm feeling? And I had to think for a minute. I was like, this is called hunger. This is such a good feeling. I feel so light, And by the way, if you don't right away satisfy the hunger, it dissipates and the body can figure things out. But the problem is at the moment we feel it, we don't even let that thing come called hunger. It doesn't even come anywhere. Why? Because there's so much stuff to eat. So food, access to food, transportation, how things work nowadays. You've seen those videos and charts of like how many planes are in the sky at a given moment. It's crazy. Communication. Yeah, back in the day, when I was in Qom, I wanted to talk to mom and dad, I had to get on my bicycle, bicycle to some other place, which is like an internet place, cafe thingy, bicycle for 20 minutes. And then if their internet was working, because back then it wasn't like today, the internet back there especially. And then pray that mom and dad are at the phone, awake, whatever, this, that. Eventually, a call would go through. Now you just WhatsApp them, right? Communication is crazy nowadays. Entertainment, crazy. Shelter, homes, living, all of that. Think about it, right? These are things that we take for granted. I mean, you turn on the water faucet's right there. Back in the day, we don't have to go too far back. Even our moms will tell us sometimes. If not, our grandmas will tell us how. If you wanted clean water, you had to go out to get it from wherever it was. The bathrooms were far away from the homes. Yeah? Nowadays, it's right in the middle of the home, but you don't even know. You can't smell anything. Social media, access to information, artificial intelligence now. I'm actually thinking that something's going to take my place. Some robot in the future, let's welcome Shaykh robot. Amin Rastani. There'll be a robot version of all of us. The blockchain technology and crypto and all that kind of stuff. They can't even stop moving money around anymore. All that kind of stuff. Brothers and sisters, this is what the modern era has brought, and God knows what else is in store for the human race moving forward. That is the difference between the past and today. Are these things bad in and of themselves? No. But what happens is we bring our guard down just a little bit. You know what's going to happen? And I'll explain what I mean by bringing the guard down. What happens before we know it, all of a sudden, the life here, has value. But my question is this. If Imam Ali said those lines 12, 13, 1400 years ago, Do you think he would say the same lines today or not? Absolutely, he would say the same lines. Today, I'll go to Imam Ali, I'll say, look at this app. He'll turn around and say, Inna dunyakum hadihi azhadu indi min aftati anz. You don't think he'll say the same line? He'll say the same line. Why? Because nothing other than Allah has value in and of itself. Why? Because everything other than Allah is batil. What's wrong with that? If all batil dissipates and goes, kullu shay'in halik illa wajha. Because everything's going to end and is temporal and is transitory, no value. But we're here for 100 years. Look what Elon Musk has done for us and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's fine. It's more comfortable to live in this life now. It's more comfortable. But the question is this, value. Value. How much value does that add? It adds value from a dunyawi perspective. But value from that perspective that we talked about, we went through all that literature in the beginning so we understand everything other than Allah in reality is batil unless it's somehow connected to Allah and in line with Him. Yeah? And His will. Alright. So, the spiritual struggle of the modern era, if you ask me, is very clear. The modern era is, without us knowing sometimes, is fooling us and changing that perspective that the Quran, that the ahadith were giving us, that value still zero. You have the best life ever. You're going to be here for how many more years? 1,000,000 years? They're going to figure out how to be alive for 1,000,000 years. Still, kullu atin qarib. Anything that's going to eventually arrive is too close. Okay? Because of that, value is still zero. We have to be careful in this world that we live in today of the modern era. The same struggle of 1400 years ago is still there, which is to keep the right perspective. The modern era, though, gives us all these comforts and luxuries. As a result of that, if we're not careful, we might catch ourselves thinking that, okay, no, this life has 30%. Still 70% for akhirah, but 30% here now. No. Number one, life expectancy, the temporal nature of this world, that's one thing. But secondly, let's not get fooled. I know quality of life has gone up, but still, life really stinks sometimes. So the dunya is always also fooling us to think that everything is perfect right now. When the baby is in the womb of his mother, you tell the baby, hey baby, you look like you're a little crammed there. You good? You want to come out? No, I'm good. Baby comes out in the crib. Hey, the crib, too small, no, I'm good. Tricycle, the house. Bicycle, neighborhood. You good? Yeah, I'm good. Bicycle, motorcycle. All of a sudden, Jeff Bezos wants to go to the moon. This shows that mankind, doesn't understand that which is ahead. We always look at what we have now and look behind us. But we forget about, hey, the future, that's what it is, man. Eternity. We want eternity. And so we're good with what we have, and then because of that, we give value. The moment value is given, that's the problem. And I think that the modern era, that is one of the major challenges. Preserving the perspective now is harder than 400 years ago. 400 years ago, 600 years ago, the guy would get up in the morning, he has no choice but to wake up at Fajr. Before the sun rises, all right, we'll do a 2 rak'ah salah, we gotta go, man. We gotta go farm. Or take our animals out to graze and stuff, all the way till night. So that what happens? The guy has a piece of bread at night to have. But when the piece of bread is being delivered at your door, you feel like, oh, there's more value to this life than 400, 600 years ago. No, it's the same still. But the dunya has its way of, because guess what? The guy that was living 600 years ago, even if you were to ask him, hey, you good? Are you good? He'll say, I'm good. Everything, yeah. This bread, this life is going to be with me forever, as if. You're like, no, it's going to end soon. The same person there, same person here, in that sense. But yes, we have to acknowledge, personally, I think that it's going to be harder now because the comfort has gone up, and we look at the past and we compare. As a result of comparing, we say, of course, this life is better than life of 400 years ago. So as a result, value goes up. Now, having said all of that, I just want to wrap up with some of the conclusions that I want to draw from everything, and then I want to share with you some excerpts from Nahj al-Balagha. Just so we see, is this dunya that we're talking so bad about right now, is it really that bad? As a matter of fact, it's really good, while it's bad. Let's see how that works. But Imam Adi is going to help us on that one. Anyway, I want to make a couple disclaimers and then wrap up with the concluding conclusions that I want to make. Number one, disclaimer. that we have to understand that although the dunya in and of itself, the value of it is how much? According to Imam Ali, is 0, because it's going to end. In and of itself, we said. Why? Because at the same time, because it has a link to our akhirah, this life that we live in, it's linked to our akhirah. How important is the akhirah? How much value does that have? Imam Ali, tell me. The Quran, tell me. Obviously, all the value is there. So if something is the bridge to akhirah, guess what? It will all of a sudden, not in and of itself now, but by means of akhirah become super valuable. So this dunya is super valuable, not in and of itself though, because of that. How important is akhirah to mankind? According to the Quran. That importance rubs off on this dunya, because the only way to get to that akhirah is to come through this dunya. That's one disclaimer. Because sometimes people say, but Allah created this world, why are we always trashing it? No. We're trashing the perception of thinking that in and of itself it has that value. Number one. Number two, all of this that I said, and I think it's already clear, but taking pleasure in life the halal way is perfectly fine. None of this means don't take pleasure in life. But just always in the back of my head, I have to remember that, okay, this dunya is going to end at the end of the day. Number two. Number three, it also doesn't mean don't work hard in this dunya, because Allah Himself has told us you have to work hard. The same one who says, كَلَّا بَلْ تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَ وَتَذَرُونَ الْآخِرَةَ, that same one is saying, I want you to work hard here. You see, God has really knows how to test people. He puts us in a world of cause and effect. He says, grow out of this causality and understand that I'm behind everything. Puts us in this world of cause and effect and building our lives, but then tells us, hey, just remember, it's all going to be ruined after you die. You're not going to take any of it with you. It's very interesting how Allah has done things. He puts us in this life, doesn't tell us when we're going to die, where we're going to die. And so because we don't know when and where we're going to die, we think we're going to live here forever. Practically, we think we're going to be here forever. If Allah had told me, seriously, if Allah had told me, hey, you're going to die December, what is it today? 24th, before Christmas Eve. 58. All right, I would take life serious. But the fact that I don't know, I might die sooner than that or not, and I don't know exactly when. I might die December 24th, 2023 even. I feel like I'm going to live longer actually. You see how Allah has done it, man? He's put us in contradiction upon contradiction. It's just so cool how Allah works. Anyway, that was something on the side. That our ignorance is bliss for us sometimes. Anyway, those are some disclaimers. So what are we trying to get out of all of this? Although I think it should be clear so far, and I did repeat everything, but I'll just go through some concluding remarks here before we get to Nahj al-Balagha. It says that the only haq out there that is eternal and never perishes is Allah. And that is why Urafat try to reach fana fillah. They want to be annihilated in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not annihilated in anything else. Any distance from Allah is loss. The biggest barrier between us and Allah is that which has no value. The dunya in and of itself has zero value. So the dunya gets between us and Allah because it will end. At the same time, it has much value as the akhirah, because it is a means to the akhirah. That's why we're here. Otherwise, Allah would take us straight there. So this thing that has no value in and of itself has value because of other reasons. We just need to make sure that our perception isn't off, brothers and sisters. Let's go back to those 3 lines from Imam Ali. The locust, the leprosy, and the other one. Brothers and sisters, in all 3 of those, what did the Imam say? He said, Dunyakum hadihi, in the first one. Dunyakum andi, second one. Dunyakum hadihi, in the third one. What's recurring in all of this? In all 3 of these, there's a pronoun. I hate to use that word, but there's a pronoun here. Dunyakum, into, you guys, your dunya. Imam Ali, you're living on the same dunya. Why are you saying my dunya, our dunya? Huh? What's the problem? Is the dunya the problem, or is something else the problem? Huh? We're the problem. Our perception is the problem. Imam Ali is saying, your dunya is valueless and worthless to me. Why? Because the dunya that you guys have is one that's going to end, but you believe it's not going to end. Otherwise, for me, we'll get to the excerpt in a minute. Someone was trying to act all cool in front of Imam Ali. He was disparaging the dunya. Imam Ali said, sit down, man. The dunya is the best thing out there. It's very interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. Think about it. Why did Imam Ali in all 3 of these lines say, Dunyakum, your dunya? He should have said our dunya. Look, Imam Ali, you're still alive. You're still in the same dunya I'm in. Why are you isolating my dunya and separating it from your dunya? Because he says, my dunya is one that's going to end. For you, apparently, the usual, the norm out there for people is that practically, if you ask them, they'll say, we're going to die one day. But practically, we all think we're here forever. Correct? That's the problem. So the problem was it the dunya? No, it was the dunya plus me, my perception. These are like those little subtle points and intricacies that you find in these words. Anyway, so we just need to make sure that our perception is not off in all of this. But yeah, the modern era poses a big threat versus the past. It poses a major threat in that it convinces us the value of the dunya is not zero. The dunya today is going to have an easier job convincing us that the dunya has some value versus 600 years ago where I had to take my sheep out to graze and I get all stinky when I come home. All right? And life just stinks. No puns intended. Okay? When you go to Hajj, Allah teaches you a little bit. Now even Hajj, we've made it really easy, but God knows how to, make us stink a little bit. You go to Hajj, at least in our school of thought, you can't use like scented soap. I was in Hajj that year, the stampede happened, 2016, 15 was it? And I survived, you can tell. But I remember it was time to shave the head, right? And so these guys, there was some guys sitting there, with their shampoo ready, like, oh, you're done with your Hajj. You would give them I don't know how much money you would give them, they would shave your head for you so you don't cut yourself up. And gave one of them money, he put that shampoo on me. You're still in ihram until you shave the head. So you're still muhrim. You can't use scented stuff. The guy started pouring this beautiful scented shampoo on me. I'm like, no! I jumped into the shower, washed it off, like, I want to be dirty. Because I don't want to pay a sheep in kafara because of using scented shampoo. Anyway, that was a disaster in itself. And let's get back to what we were talking about, which was that back then, Allah has His way of even today teaching us that, look, if for 2 or 3 days I don't let you take a proper shower, look at you, man. Yeah, look at you. This is what we are at the end of the day. So these reminders are there. So I'm gonna absolutely agree with anyone who says that this dunya, though, at the end of the day, the modern era is gonna have an easier job convincing us that no, there is value here in and of itself. All right, if we take care of these things, no matter how much advancement, technological, whatever it is, inshallah, we should be fine, actually. But to achieve this, brothers and sisters, we have to not lie to ourselves about the reality of the matter when it comes to this dunya, and constantly remind ourselves through having a connection and relationship with our scripture, with our literature. Decluttering our lives a little bit sometimes helps. Getting rid of some of the extra stuff helps. I don't want anyone to go home tonight and be like, oh, we got to get rid of stuff. No. Just all in all, keeping tabs on things isn't a bad idea sometimes. Just a little bit. So that we don't feel like, oh, this is we're here to stay for a long time. Surrounding ourselves with people who are of that understanding, of a Quranic understanding, having those people around us, it's crazy the influence that others can have on us. Sometimes you believe in something, but the others, their influence changes your ways as a result. I've seen it. Reading the stories of those who have divorced the dunya, not so we need to necessarily divorce the dunya, but just see, when you read, it's all nur. These people's stories, these scholars' stories, it's all nur. The stories of the shuhada, they cut off that link, man. They cut it off in one night. So that link to the dunya, that attachment, you're putting your life on the line for Allah, right? And so reading up on those things, how they lived in those moments before their shahada, continuing the obedience of Allah, these things will keep us in check, inshallah. And it's the modern era, no matter what it throws at us, it won't change our perspective, at least, inshallah. Having said all of that, dunya is bad, dunya is this, dunya is that, we said all this kind of stuff, right? But we said in and of itself, it has no value. But then all of a sudden it has value because of other reasons. Nahj al-Balagha makes this clear, and I will end with after I read this excerpt from Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha. It says someone came to him. This is saying number 131. It's one of my favorite ones. I always cite this one. And so it says that someone, Imam Ali, in the presence of Imam Ali, tried to act cool and all, right? And so he's like, you know what? Imam Ali's here. Let's talk bad about the dunya. Think about it. When you're with a friend that hates somebody, you want to be all cool with them. So when you're around them, yeah, that guy, this, that, you start trashing them, right? So that you can get closer to this person that you're with because they're cool. This person, it's as if, I don't know what he was trying to prove to Imam Ali. He's like, yeah, the dunya this, the dunya that. Starts bashing the dunya. Man, I love what Imam Ali did here. Because if you want to be super spiritual, be super spiritual. You don't have to tell me about it. Anyway, it says that the Imam, he said, "O you who abuse the world, the dunya." Now, I'm reading off the translation. I don't know how accurate it is. Hopefully it does justice to the Arabic. It says, "O you who abuse the world, the dunya. O you who have been deceived by its deceit and cheated by its wrongs." Now the Arabic here is very precise. Al-mughtar bi-ghururiha. You allowed and showed the vulnerability to be fooled by its fooling you. Otherwise, if there wasn't a weakness in you, it can't fool you. And Imam explains why that's the case as we move forward. Do you covet the world and then abuse it? Talk bad about it? Like you're like, hey, come here, man, I love you so much. And then you say, I hate you, I hate you. Like, what's going on here? That's such a contradictory thing to do. Do you accuse it or should it accuse you? Like, you're complaining about the dunya. I think Imam Ali is saying, I think the dunya should be complaining about you. Man al-mutajarrim. Are you the mutajarrim? Who's the one who has the jurm? Who's the one who has committed the crime here? You or the dunya? Dunya, poor thing, didn't do anything wrong. When did it bewilder or confuse you? Yeah? Did it like hide things from you, not show you certain things? No, it showed you everything. Was it by the decay and fall of your forefathers that it deceived you? It showed you your forefathers that they have all decayed, they died and decayed. That's how it fooled you? I mean, we see everything that's going on in the world. And the ones who've died and passed away, we know what's going on. Did it deceive you by the sleeping places of your mothers under the ground? Did it deceive you like that? Not show you that? It showed you all of this. It showed you everything. How much you looked after them in their illness, nursed them during sickness, desiring them to be cured, consulting physicians for them in the morning when your medicine did not avail them, and your wailing for them did not benefit them. Your mourning over them did not prove useful to them, and you could not achieve your aims. You could not ward off death from them with all your power. So what do you mean dunya fooled me? Dunya showed you everything. Don't you remember all these days? In fact, through the dying man, the world presented an illustration for you and showed you by the example of the ones who die, the falling down, how you should also and will fall. So what do you mean? Oh, this dunya is bad. This dunya lied to me. No one lied to you. You lied to you. That's right. Certainly, this world is a house of truth. This dunya, all of a sudden, how do you think he's describing a prophet from here on? Is a house of truth for him who appreciates it, a place of safety for him who gains understanding of it, a house of riches for him who collects provision from it for the next world. You see, in and of itself, it didn't have value, but if you're preparing something else, does it have value? So Imam Ali, are you praising the dunya? He says, I'm praising it, but not in and of itself, because of other things. A house of riches, a house of lessons for him who takes lesson from it. You have to be willing, if you open your eyes, you will take lesson from it. Lessons all over it. It is the place of worship for the lovers of Allah. What are you talking about? It's a bad place. The place of praying for the angels of Allah. The place where the revelation of Allah descends. And the marketing place. Matjaru awliya'illah. The Wall Street of awliya'ullah. You make money on Wall Street. Not because you want to live in Wall Street. Who wants to live in Wall Street? You take money out from Wall Street. You cash out. You go live in the Bahamas. AKA Akhirah. The place of praying for the angels, for those devoted to Allah, herein they earned mercy, and herein they acquired Jannah by way of profiting and tijara and these things. It's only through this dunya that you can gain akhirah. What do you mean it's bad? So you see, Imam Ali here is making sure that dunya kum is a problem, but at dunya in its generality, there's no problem there. As a matter of fact, it's a good thing. Therefore, who can abuse it when it has announced its departure, called out that it would leave? It had given news of its own destruction and the death of its people. By its hardship, it set an example of their hardships. By its pleasures, it created eagerness for the pleasures of the next world. So you have a taste of pleasure and hardship here, and then you're going to get the perfect form of it there. So it's giving you a taste of that. It brings ease in the evening and grief in the morning by way of persuasion, dissuasion, alarm, and warning. People will curse it on the morning of their regret, but there are others who will praise it on the day of judgment. Yeah? فَذَمَّهَا رِجَالٌ غَدَاةً النَّدَامَةِ وَحَمِدَهَا آخَرُونَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. He says, on the day of judgment, which is a day of regret for some people, on the day of regret, they will curse the dunya. But in reality, they're cursing themselves. But there will be people that will speak of that same dunya others are cursing on the day of judgment, which is their day of regret. There will be some who will praising it and be in love with it. Yeah. The world reminded them of the next life, and they bore it in mind. It related to them, and they acknowledged them. It preached to them, and they took lesson therefrom. And so, brothers and sisters, all in all, just to end, inshallah, the modern era does have something different than the previous eras. Yes, in the fact that it is unprecedented the way it can convince us that there's an actual value here in and of itself. If we are careful about that, inshallah, we should be set. And we can only fix this perspective and maintain and keep it, inshallah, alive in us if we, inshallah, keep a connection with these things that we talked about, that I also discuss in my concluding remarks. Inshallah, Allah gives us that tawfiq that we keep things real in this life and we're ready for the next life when the time comes, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.